It's not quite El Sacchio, but it bloody should be. I'll tell you that much. West Ham travel to Bournemouth to the seaside for a nice old seaside knees up on Monday night at 8 o'clock to face high flying AFC Bournemouth, level on points with Brighton, no doubt. I've got Frank here with me. We're going to look ahead to the game. Thank you for joining me, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, very, very well. Getting in that festive spirit now. It's all just round the corner. I like football at Christmas. I really enjoy Boxing Day games. Seems like they're trying to pull it a little bit. It's, we struggle to get the Boxing Day fixtures now. I'd go, obviously, being next to a shopping centre don't help. And then also New Year's Day, they're trying to pull that as well. But I love nothing more than after sitting there for a whole day eating food and watching rubbish on the telly and get into the football. I really do enjoy football festive season. So
it's funny you say that. I was actually having a chat with my lad about it, and he said, "Oh, isn't that?" He said, "That's a pain, isn't it?" He said that Bournemouth being so close to Christmas, and then obviously Southampton is on Boxing Day. I said, "Well, no." I said the thing is with those South Coast ones, actually, people want them either right at the start of the season when it's hot, or right at the end of the season when it's hot, or if you can't do any of that and you can't have a day out at the seaside, then you do want it at Christmas. I don't know, there's something Christmassy about it. I'm not sure how festive it's going to be, mate. So we'll start off with getting your thoughts about the impressive Bournemouth, mate.
Yeah, can't be anything but impressive them, really. Signed some really good players. The one who sort of springs to mind is Cliver. He's come into some fantastic form. I remember when old Mourinho put his arm around him on the football pitch and sort of said to him how good he was, and I'd give him said that he's just a fantastic player. So I think everyone could see that he had lots of talent, but just athletic, pace, just everything that you want from players in your football team. And not to say that, but just the fact that they've the second most shots in the Premier League, only behind Manchester City. So they play football that's exciting, that creates chances, that gets shots at goal. And yeah, they are a joy to watch, to be perfectly honest, and just a very well run club. And then they've managed to bring in a manager that I guess wasn't on too many people's radars, which a lot of clubs seem to manage to pick out these little gems out of nowhere. We seem to struggle with that, but these other clubs seem to manage it. And I was listening to the Bournemouth sort of preview prior to jumping on here, and yeah, they're just in dreamland, to be quite honest, at the moment. And there's a lot to be said for the fact that they understood our Moyes situation, because they said when we had Gary O'Neill, everyone sort of turned round to him and said, well, I think Jeff Stelling even put out a tweet, "This is as good as it gets." That's what he said. There is no better for you. And they're all sort of sticking two fingers up now and saying, look where we are. There was another chapter for what we could deliver. So they're over the moon. They're all sort of, they now get the Moyes situation. They said when we was moaning, everyone used to sort of knock us and say, what's your problem? Why are you whinging when, you're in a really good place for Bournemouth? But like all fans, we all want that little bit more, and we all want that bit of success. And they rolled the dice. They got rid of Gary O'Neill, and now they're reaping the rewards. So it's good to see.
I didn't know that about Stelling. I don't know what's happened to him. He used to be like everyone's lovable uncle. When he was doing Soccer Saturday, he couldn't put a foot wrong. He's turned into a troll.
Talk-itis is what it is.
It's quite. I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me because he's been going at West Ham fans. It's exactly the same. He reacted exactly the same way with Moyes, and even now to this day, he is annoyed. And I know a lot of them have been proven correct because Lopetegui's crap, in my opinion, of course. But I think even if he'd have been brilliant, they still would have disliked him. There's nothing he could have done because they've decided maybe it's a British's best thing. I don't know. Maybe it was the same with Gary O'Neill. Who knows? But yeah, I'm in absolute agreement. They rolled the dice. They do seem to be able to go out and pick up these gems. It's almost as if other clubs know what's going on in overseas leagues. It's amazing, really, what happens. Maybe it's something to do with scouting coaches as well as players. Very, very impressed Recruitment, the owner is impressive. Iraola carries himself. He's got authority. He's a young man, but he carries authority in it, and he looks like a boss. And I like the way he interacts with his players. And I think what you said absolutely is correct about the pace and the way they are direct. And I mentioned this in another video. The irony is that I think West Ham recruited Lopetegui believing it to be the safe option because he had Premier League experience. But the irony is that Iraola plays far more of a Premier League game that's suited to the fast-paced Premier League than Lopetegui does. And, well, I'll be interested. I'm interested. I'm not going to skip forward, but towards the end of the video, we'll be asking Frankie if he's confident or not, and whether or not certainly Iraola has the magic combination to cause Lopetegui's defence any problems. But you'll have to wait before we get to that. Obviously, you've mentioned Clive. Anyone else that you admire on the playing staff, mate?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty. I mean, their attacking line is just everything you could want from an attack, really. They've got players who can pull wide and have got pace. They've got, central figures who can sort of play as that on the last man striker or drop into a number 10 role. They've just got options. I actually, it's very difficult to sit here and, I mean, you could name every single one of their players and they've all got something they bring to the team, but that's the bigger point, isn't it? They've got a balanced squad. They've got players who play in the right positions, who know their roles, that are good at their positions. Something that sounds like it should be a standard, but actually for us, it isn't. And when you watch them, you can only be a little bit envious of that fact that they have got a squad of, players who play in the right positions, who know how to play those roles. They've got those defensive midfield options. They've got the attacking midfield options. They've got, clear strikers. They've got good fullbacks. Just all round, I think they are very balanced. And actually, there's not really one. We could all name and pick our favourite, but I don't think there's one necessarily standout who's like this ego above the rest. We seem to have a bit of these egos at the moment, but they all seem to be, very much all pulled together. And you see that squad harmony that they've got. It's very comparable to Nottingham Forest and what they've got at the moment. And I know Bournemouth are making it, seeming like a little bit more successful than what Nottingham Forest are, but just that squad harmony is just so strong from them. So, yeah, I mean, every single one of that front three is a danger man, whether it be Semenyo, whether it be Cliver. They're all, they can all turn it on and give us problems on Monday night. So, yeah, it's a concern.
Yeah, they've definitely got some good players. I'm always reluctant to hail a club for having sort of overcome the loss of a key player, because I definitely remember at the start of the first season, after we lost Declan Rice last season, and we'd started really well at the start last season, but also Tottenham had started really well, and Tottenham had just lost Harry Kane. I remember, I never mind looking, I think I'd probably said it on a video. Hey, look, West Ham have lost their superstar player. Tottenham have lost their superstar player. Just goes to show what happens if you plan. Anyway, I got that totally wrong, because both teams have been pretty crap since, actually. So I don't want to say that it's been they've cracked it yet in terms of losing Dominic Solanke, but it looks like with Ivan Nilsson, or whatever his name is, they've done really well. They've picked a really good striker there. Semenyo, as you alluded to. I think he can manage these players. That he's doing really well. I think the midfield play above and beyond the sum of their parts. Not calling them crap players. I think they're decent players, maybe underrated players. But I look at a lot of that squad and I sort of think, wow, man, wonder what he could do with a budget. And obviously, I'm obviously thinking about it selfishly. I'm thinking, I wonder what he could do at West Ham. This. I make no bones about it. This would be my choice as replacement for Lopetegui. We're not even linked with him, and I think we have no chance of getting him, because I don't think we have any ambition to get him. And I also think he would be going from a highly organised club to one that's not so much, maybe. I really like Kirkes. There's a jealousy factor to that as well, because I think we should have got him, because we got first eyes on him because he was playing for Alkmaar when we faced up against them in Europe. I think probably the worst thing for me is there's a lot of jealousy, and I don't know how it's come to the fact that I sit here and I'm jealous of Bournemouth, Brentford, and Brighton, and anyone else that begins with B probably. But it shouldn't be that way. It was never meant to be. I shouldn't be looking enviously, thinking, "Oh wow, look, they're really good," yeah, they just seem to do things a lot better than us. Certainly, I just want to point out is Frankie has very very kindly sat and watched through Hulan Lopetegui's press conference before joining me to do this, which is sort of like a punishment, really, isn't it?
It was. It felt like it.
um, he transcribed it for me and he wrote it down. And there's something that really did tickle me out of that. And I'll tell you what, we will do things slightly differently in a second. So I want to get your thoughts on his press conference. But I did notice he was asked about Iraola. Lopetegui was asked about Iraola. Basically said, "What do you think? What do you think about Iraola?" And he said, "Yeah, I think he's really good, but he was given time." Well, he didn't do so well at the start. He was given time, wasn't he? Which was basically, that was code for him saying, "Give me more time. I can be good. I can be as good as him if I'm given time." However, I do think quite possibly we should have seen a turnaround a little bit before now if we're going to use Iraola as a time frame. What did you take for? Did you think you fell asleep? Obviously during his press conference.
Well, I'll tell you why I didn't, because I rewound that video about 50 times just trying to understand what it was that he was saying. It's really interesting that until you actually have to properly listen to all the bits he's saying, so I could give you a little bit of insight into what he was banging on about. You realize how difficult it is to understand what he's coming out of his mouth. When you're sort of glazing over it or you're listening to it in the background, you pick up those little snippets and that's enough. But when you actually got to try and listen to him, it isn't the easiest. So yeah, it was a tough listen. Very, very short press conference. Very short. Didn't go on very long at all. One person asking the questions. Yeah, it was, and they actually said beforehand that, you know, they almost insinuate that they've got a bit of time and that it won't be rushed, but it was very much, you know, one person ask a few questions. It started with Fulkrug, very, very pushy about the Fulkrug situation, I think because he didn't feature in the last game against Wolves. So they wanted to understand what's going on there, especially when he had featured the game prior to that. So he features, he comes on, he scores, then he goes vanishing again. So they wanted to press him on that a little bit. Basically asked him if he's going to be anywhere near the starting lineup, which Lopetegui starts to talk about the fact that he was out for a very long time, and that was his excuse for not being in the starting lineup. But then they said, "Well, is he fully fit then?" And she did press him on it. I was quite surprised. And said, "Well, is he fully fit then?" And he said, "No, he's absolutely strong, fit." Has been working as normal for the last 10 days. So he's ready and raring to go. But clearly just either not fancied or hasn't got the relationship with Lopetegui to fancy him in the starting lineup. So yeah, I after that, it's not someone that I'm expecting to feature, but it's someone that I felt may have had a little bit more positivity around them after what's happened to Mikel. You know, you now are going to have to rely on him potentially a little bit more than you might have had to done before. So I felt like a little bit more positivity. And even if you come out and say, look, you know, we've got players at the moment that are performing really well, that's great. But if the opportunity arises and he comes on, I fully expect him to come in and take full advantage of that opportunity. Then that's a different spin on it. But it wasn't. It was quite dismissive. So I was quite surprised by that. And then they went on to the fact that the interviewer had been speaking to Emerson this week in the training ground, and that he'd mentioned that they're doing everything they can to work on their defending, but most importantly, stop conceding goals early on in football matches. And when he was quizzed on that, you know, he said, well, yeah, we are working, but it's very difficult to defend in the Premier League. Well, of course. And then he said, but yes, if we can stop conceding early, it will help us win football matches. What I take from the type of things that he says, there just isn't really any I don't know. There's nothing really to grasp hold of. There's nothing really that he says that makes you go, do you know what? It gives me confidence. It instills something in me. It's a little bit of wisdom, or it's a little bit of whatever. Everything's really wishy-washy.
Yeah.
And, that's how it comes across throughout the whole press conference, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah. And then you mentioned the Iraola situation and the fact that, he used that basically to say, that scenario, I need the same. But I think listening to the Bournemouth preview, I mean, they are trying to also put Lopetegui into that same bracket as what Iraola was for them. So they said, look, give him time and they think it will come good. But they're not sitting there watching it like we are.
No.
And we've gone on a lot longer. And I think Iraola showed a lot more signs. But I will say it seems a long, long time now since we played them in the Cup early on in the season.
Yep.
And there's a very, very... That night was one of the most dull, boring football matches that I've ever had the mispleasure to watch. I actually took my son and all his football team. So I had sort of 8 children at their first ever football match. It wasn't for my son, but it was for these other kids. So you're trying to inspire them to watch this amazing football.
Yeah.
It was so dull, and trying to entertain these kids was... made it a very interesting evening. But, you look at what went on in that game, and obviously we got the result 1-0 and Bowen's handball and so on. But they've come a long way since then. I'm not so sure we have. And that's the problem.
No, it's quite funny actually, because you're the second person today to tell me how bad that that game was. Honestly, it is funny. My mate Dan earlier on said exactly the same thing. He went, oh god, that game was terrible. He said, almost forgot about it. I think I mean it's just so much there really. In terms of Lopetegui, I think we've seen a very, very different guy to the guy that was presented to us, who was full of beans. Those first few offerings from the media team, we saw a confident man, a talkative man, and now he seems very unsure of himself, hoping to try and change conversational questions to turn around to suit himself, to almost sort of create a little bit of PR and a little bit of spin to make himself sound better. So turn a question around and make the person that's asking the question turn it back on him to reinforce why he should be given a little bit more time, even though the question was about Iraola. I think the other thing was, whilst perhaps Bournemouth are just being nice. Everyone's nice, and I think they mean things well. And I think looking from the outside, looking in, if you don't have to watch it every week, you're probably looking at West Ham thinking they're okay. We're 1 point behind Manchester United. And you probably look at it, if you're thinking positively, cup half full, you probably think, well, actually, look at West Ham, that they can push up another 2 wins and they'll be up there mixing it. But yeah, it's very, very different, I think, if you're cup half empty, which I certainly am with the team at the moment. And when Iraola was trying to bed down his tactics at Bournemouth and not getting results, it was very obvious what tactics he was trying to bed down. So there was a clear strategy, which I don't think that we have. Fulkrug, yeah, very interesting. I mean, what Frankie alluded to at the start, for those of you who don't know, the rumour is that Fulkrug and Lopetegui don't get along. It's not going to be any surprise to you guys, because you've already heard that there are actually 4 other people on the playing staff that Lopetegui doesn't get along with anyway. It's almost as if there's a little bit of a theme there. It's almost like we were warned before he joined that he didn't get along with people. I'm not going to say any more about that. We're going to discuss the West Ham team in just a second. Before I do, can I please point you in the direction of today's video sponsor, the Santa Co., the Santa Company. Now, let me tell you about this, boys and girls. It's all very well writing a Father Christmas. We can all do that, and you better have done so already. Getting a letter back is not so easy, and that's what we're going to help you with the help of the Santa Co. We have got a discount code which will allow you to get Father Christmas to write you a letter. This isn't just some generic letter. This is a personalised letter. The link is in the description below. So is the discount code. It's Hammers Chat, all one word. And what you get back is a personalised letter from Father Christmas. This is very, very important, though. The more detail you give Father Christmas and his helpers, the elves, which is obviously who you're letting know, the more you're going to get back. So your son or your daughter, let the elves know what they want for Christmas. Let them know. Let them know why they've been on a naughty step. I'm joking. Let them know what their interests are. The more in-depth, the more detail you give, the better personalised response you'll get. Comes in a lovely envelope, nice stick paper, beautiful personalised letter, a real personalised Father Christmas experience. And that is just the first thing they do. There's several different tiers. There's several different things. You can actually go a little bit further than that. If you want to spend a bit more on a tenner, you get something with, actually has North Pole snow in it. Doesn't even melt in the letter. It's magical North Pole snow. I'm sure you all know that anyway. We've got a really good discount code. We've got a 50% discount code if you're a patron. Check out the link in the description below. That's thesantaco.co.uk. And just a little bit of extra magic this Christmas. Actually, Frankie, you actually did say that you particularly like Christmas and you particularly like football at Christmas. The natural segue is to ask if you think Father Christmas is going to bring Lopetegui 3 points against Bournemouth, but we will get that. We'll do that at the end of the video. The fitness update, of course, you've just heard about Fulkrug. Obviously, Antonio is not available. We wish him well. It's so nice to hear that. People are having jokes of him, and he's had phone calls of people and stuff like that. And you just always know once people start taking the piss and they're having a laugh and he's having a laugh with his teammates, then that's a really good sign, because it just means that, hopefully the worst is over. And but obviously he's not going to be fit to play for any sort of time yet. Well, I think we'll go straight to it. What would your team be for this one, Frankie, starting from the goalkeeper?
Well, it's going to be an interesting one because he kept alluding to an issue in the press conference. He mentioned it multiple times, and he said there's 2 late fitness tests. And halfway through, he almost wanted to reiterate that we've had an issue this week. So something's gone on that we normally like a leak. Something hasn't been leaked and has gone on that we're not au fait to. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news or look at it doom and gloom, but the way he was mentioning it is it would be an important player. So it's quite interesting that there might be something that are just around the corner that could change these starting lineups. But
oh no, it's not Guido Rodriguez, is it?
I'm a big fan of Guido Rodriguez, and with an athletic team that play with right. all Brilliant. The pace in the world, he would be the first man on my list.
Yeah.
I was probably one of the biggest people to push for Fabianski coming back in instead of Iraola, when I felt Iraola wasn't quite having the best of seasons so far. And if you've got 2 goalkeepers, then, well, we've actually got more than 2 goalkeepers, but one is never going to get a look in. But when you've got those 2 goalkeepers who are still at that Premier League standard, then you do have to use your squad. And if somebody's not at it, then it's only right that the other man does come in. And I think it was the right decision at that time. But it also applies when the roles are reversed. And I've not been overly confident in Fabianski the last few games. So I did actually expect for the Wolves game for potentially Iraola to come back in. And our biggest problem at the moment is we are leaking goals. They've mentioned in the press conference that that's something that they're really focused on. A goalkeeper plays a big part in that. So, but again, we just don't know whether or not there's a good relationship between manager and player there. And for all of potential ability and mixing things up and trying to stop the rot, if you like, because let's be honest, Wolves created a lot of chances the other night, a lot of chances, yes, and Bournemouth are going to create more. So you've got to have someone who we're confident between the sticks. If I knew that Iraola was in good headspace, I would potentially be saying that would be an option to bring him back in. But I'm not confident that he is in the right headspace, as I'm not with some of the other players within the squad. And because of that reason, you go with old Steady Eddie, and Fabianski goes in goal for me.
Yeah, I'd pick Fabianski as well, as much as anything else, because I know Areola and Lopetegui are not getting on. They've had a that's another one. So yeah, I just no point even suggesting that would happen, because it won't. Your back four, presuming it's a back four.
Yeah, back for Emerson. Obviously, they've been speaking to Emerson. It seems like he's a bit of a spokesman for the defence at the moment. One of the senior players who they're sort of leaning on. So if he's saying they've been working, then I take it that they've been working, and he's been part of that. So Emerson goes at left back. I think because of the way that Bournemouth play and the way that they're potentially going to line up, the natural thing would be to be Kilman and Todibo. But again, with the issues that are going on with Todibo at the moment, again, it makes it very difficult to pick him. The total mixed bag with Mavropanos. I've seen so many people saying that he was one of the better performers in the last game.
Yeah.
And then I've seen plenty of people who really didn't like his performance and have got major concerns around him. So again, this ain't easy, and it's going to be a really interesting thing to see how Lopetegui and the team that he does pick. But I'm probably going to go for Mavropanos, Kilman, and Wan-Bissaka sort of picks himself at the moment.
Yes, he certainly does that. I thought Mavropanos was one of the better defenders actually against Wolves, but I wouldn't pick him for this. I'm assuming, I don't know. Look, they had a cuddle on the touchline, Lopetegui and Todibo. I'm quite sure it was for the cameras, but I'll take it at face value. I'll go with him for his little bit of extra mobility, because I just think we're going to need someone that can turn quickly. I don't think they're going to be battering. I think they'll be playing a little bit differently to how they played with Solanke in the team. He won a lot of headers last season, Solanke. So I'm assuming they're not going to do as much, as a bit more mobility. I don't know if is it Ivan Ilson? Is that his name? I think it might be.
Yeah, Ivan Ilson. Yeah.
He played in Portugal, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the guy that I think it is. I think sometimes he used to play wide as well, and he's got the look of one of those strikers. So I think he might be, tricky, getting in behind, lots of pace, that type of thing. So I'm not sure we need Mavropanos necessarily for this one, possibly Todibo. So yeah, that would be my only change. Moving into midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I need to see Paqueta back in this one, just for creativity. I was really impressed with Soler going back 4 or 5 games. The last 2 games, I've not been so impressed. I really felt we saw a player sort of coming into his own a little bit and starting to find his feet. And at Newcastle, I thought he had a really good game. I thought he was looking really positive. The Leicester game, he as much as he was up and down and he was, getting on the edge of their box and having shots, he was also getting back and doing a lot of defending. When he has to really break his neck to get back, he almost gives up on tracking players. And again, in this sort of game, I don't think you can allow a midfielder who's going to let people roam forward and you're not prepared to really break your neck to get back and help your team out and defend. So I think for that reason, he concerns me. But also in the Leicester game, he really slowed up play. And you saw actual players getting really frustrated with him that he wasn't moving the ball forward fast enough. And the frustration showed from the other players. And that's something that's crept into his game over the last 2 games that I've seen him play. And again, when you've got a team that's got plenty of pace all over the park and they've got good fullbacks, the fact that we're going to have to move the ball nice and quickly is going to be really, really important. So in saying that, I'm then going to say Souček, and I'm going to put him in there who's the world's worst for moving the ball quickly. But he's in there for other reasons. Yeah. He's in there because I think, again, we saw the other night that for all of Souček's faults, he still is 100% man. He gives everything for West Ham. He scores very, very important goals for West Ham as well. And, Bournemouth, they're 2 centre-halves. I think Souček crashing into the box could be something that we could see some success from. Arsenal are making a great thing from corners at the moment and showing how effective they can be. Why we was trying them short corners, I will never know. But when we did decide to put one in the back and have people in front of Souček blocking people off, it worked an absolute charm. So it was a great little tactic. I want to see more of it. And him crashing into the box, I would like. So that's Paqueta, Souček, and then the other one that I'm going to put in there again, just for the fact that we need somebody who is going to break play up, is going to be Alvarez. So that would be my midfield three.
Yeah, I don't know why this is so tough for me this week. I think Souček, I agree with everything you said about Souček. He certainly deserves to be in. There's no doubt about that. The reason I'm a little bit concerned about him is I've got very limited recollection of Souček and Füllkrug playing together. Well, there's good reason for that. It's because they haven't really played together. That's far more to do with Füllkrug than it is my memory, I can assure you. They seem to they're just getting each other's way. A couple of times I've seen it, but I'm gonna plow on. Anyway, I'm actually, you're absolutely right. You need someone to break up play, but I think for this one, I'm going to actually ask Souček to do it because it keeps him away from Füllkrug. And the one occasion he's been asked to do it when both Alvarez and Rodriguez are out, he did it, and I think he did a really able job. And then what I'm going to do is, but obviously he's still there for set pieces and stuff like that. What I will do, I just can't trust Paqueta. I've not even liked his cameos. I don't know. It seems so discussing this court case for so long now, this FA hearing for the betting allegations. I don't know if it's finally caught up with him. I don't know. It almost felt like his cameo almost felt like sticking two fingers up. I wonder if he's sticking two fingers up Lopetegui. Do I believe that Paqueta could fall out with Lopetegui? You're damn bloody right I do, because I know that there's several other people are falling out with Lopetegui, so why not chuck one more in there? So I'm not even particularly doubting myself on that thought process. I'm actually going to go with Carlos Soler, and I'm going to go with Lewis Orford because it's just time. I produced a video earlier on today on the forum channel about watching Lewis Skelly, who played for Arsenal in the Champions League this week. Was far from an outstanding player in the FA Youth Cup final when we played against him. Keep seeing Arsenal do it. Orford's been made England under-19 captain on his debut. We were 1-0 down to Mönchengladbach in the week on Tuesday. He got the goal that pulled us back into it. Some of his range of passing was exceptional. I've no doubt that Lewis Orford is a better midfield option than someone like Guido Rodriguez. We are not dealing with the young, skinny 16, 17-year-old that we once saw. I don't know how big Lewis is, but I'd imagine he's 6'1", something like that. He's not really skinny either. I think he's ready. I think he's ready for men's football, and I think he's got such a brilliant. He's got a long-range shot, which is something I don't really feel we've got an awful lot of, to be fair. He's got a great long-range, short and long-range passing. I think with another footballer in there, which I think Soler is, I think it would probably... It's interesting you saying you thought Soler slows the game down, because one thing that I always think Orford does, I think he looks for the forward pass, bang. So you may well find that he counterbalances that. I feel that Lopetegui is going to have to do something in this game because I think Bournemouth are a nightmare for us. Which leaves your front three, mate.
Yeah, I'm just going with the same again against Wolves, really. I'm going Bowen, Somerville and Kudus. I wasn't convinced by them in that game. I am in terms of their ability. I'm not sure we had them playing in the best way that they could as a front three. But sometimes that comes with time, and sometimes it comes with playing together and getting an understanding of each other. I just think there's something in it. It's this front three that should frighten anyone. As much as we're sitting here concerned about Kluivert, Semenyo and Evan-Nilsson, I know who I'd want my front three to be if you gave me the option, and
Sure.
that would be Kudus, Bowen and Somerville. So I'd pick that front three over their front three all day long. So, we should be able to create as much as they do with our front three players, and it should give them more concerns than their front three give us. So at some point you've got to be confident, and at some point you've got to believe that you have got these talented players who can go out there and turn it on. So for whatever reason, we're still not seeing Kudus as a more central figure. It seems like it was just Moyes didn't want to do it. Lopetegui doesn't want to do it, and I don't really understand why. And maybe there's something we're not aware of, and maybe it's something that the player doesn't want to. I know
Sure.
people say he plays there for Ghana, but it just seems so weird that it's not something that we're ever
Yeah.
seeing on the football pitch. So really strange. And I do prefer Bowen on the right. I just do. I think that's his best position. I think it's where he's the most dangerous. I think it's where he's the most natural. And I actually think he scores more goals from being on the right-hand side than he does down the middle as well. So, but again, there's no reason why these players shouldn't be able to interchange and give defenders a lot to think about when they think they should be marking Bowen on the right and then Kudus is there. But then all of a sudden, Kudus is in the middle and Bowen's out wide on the right. It's something that has to be drilled. It's something that has to be worked upon, and it's something they've got to get right. But I just still believe there's something in it. And it should be able to be effective. We just got to find out how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm exactly the same as yourself. Keep Bowen on the right as well. Whatever happens, I will change something at half time. Well, I say whatever happens. If we get to half time of Bowen and Somerville and Kudus have all scored 2 goals, then maybe I'll keep it. But I'll look to bring Fulkrug on in a second half. But Kudus through the middle. If he doesn't want to be a striker, he doesn't have to be a striker. Play a little bit deeper if you want. You're going to be able to do that with the composition of the midfield that I picked there as well. Get some long shots going, I think would be something. I think it's so
There's a lot
good
to be said for that. I mean,
Yeah.
you see John Duran in the week and he has that shot from distance and he keeps doing it.
Yeah.
But it's like at the moment, Kudus is petrified of letting his shots off. And he's either been instructed to not do it because you see he gets to the edge of the box and he looks up and you think, go on then. And he just refuses to let his shots off. It's really strange that I don't know if it's a confidence thing or instruction. I don't know.
Well, the thing is that increasingly football has become more tactical and analytical. And everyone I say everyone, apart from myself, everyone sort of knows where to stand and everyone knows what expects of them. The one thing that has always killed tactics is someone that can skip past a player, because then your shape's gone. Someone's going to, and you basically defending team, you've got 2 choices. You either leave this one player that's just skipped past his marker, you either leave him be and let him do whatever he's going to do, or someone has to come out of position to deal with him, right? You get someone that has the ability to do that, like Kudus. If you then put in a long shot as well, I think they're tactics killers, these things. These players that can do that, they really are. They throw people's plans into disarray. And I think we're too frequently our plans get thrown into disarray. I'd like to see us do it to other teams, actually. And we've certainly got the players to do so. And Kudus absolutely is one of them. We just need to try and find a way to get more of last season's Kudus. I certainly think Somerville's got that, but he hasn't got the long shot. So we have players that can create space and drag players and beat their marker, which then creates. You can hopefully be able to, if you're half decent on tactically, you should be able to then create a 2-on-1 situation. I think that's just basic, not even particularly analytical, but it's just basic football tactics, isn't it? So I think there's still some method in that form of madness. So yes, okay. So they're both our teams. I'm going to ask the question anyway. Are you confident for this one?
I'm taking confidence from the fact that I know it doesn't normally happen at home, but they have also had some iffy results. They did get beat by Leicester. So I know they've had 3 good results in a row, but again, they're not the best sides that they've got them 3 results from. Ipswich had them on the ropes. You thought Ipswich had beaten them. 87th minute, they get a goal and they find a 95th minute winner. I watched Tottenham last night. I watched the Rangers-Tottenham game. Tottenham are nothing special this season. That's absolutely for sure. And then they beat Wolves. So I know there's 3 wins in a row there, but the 2 before that, they did get beat at home by Brighton. They did get beat by Brentford at Brentford's ground. So there are little things there that I can take confidence from, that they are, a side. They're only just another footballing side. And what I found a little bit frustrating about Lopetegui's press conference is when he was asked about Bournemouth, and he actually said it's one of the more difficult challenges. And I'm not saying that he's wrong in a sense that they're the informed side, and it might just be a language thing.
Yeah.
Again, it might just be that he might have just communicated it in the wrong way. But if you think Bournemouth away is the more difficult challenge you're going to have this season in the Premier League, then we might as well just give up now. I want to see somebody, and I want to see an attitude that we go into this game believing that we are West Ham United and we are better than Bournemouth. That's what I want us to see. And we've got to approach it with confidence. We've got to look at some of them games and think it is just Bournemouth. Would we swap their squad for ours? I mean, there's definitely an argument in terms of balance, but in terms of player ability, I would still have our squad all day long. And for that reason, I am confident. And I'm always confident going into games because I'm a West Ham fan and I'm a believer and keep the faith and all that. That's what we're all about. But yeah, I'm going to go into it and I think we are going to turn up another result. It needs a big step forward from the Wolves game. I'm not saying that. We've got to really improve on the Wolves match. If we come out and play like we did against Wolves, then it's going to be a very difficult night for us. But he says pressure's off after winning the Wolves game. Well, let's see us going into this with a bit of a freedom and find us getting a result.
Yeah, I mean, we desperately, all of us, we desperately need this victory. He needs back-to-back victories, back-to-back Premier League victories. And then you can start to say, and he can start to say with some belief that things are getting better, because he could say it now until he's blue in the face. No one believes him. No one believes that things are getting better. I'm struggling. I think you're absolutely right. I think we've got the better players, but I think we're worse than the sum of our parts. I think they're better than the sum of our parts. And I think they're strong in areas that terrify us. And I think Wolves were wasteful. And I think Wolves were unlucky in many respects, particularly with the Mavropanos penalty. And I'm very, very worried about this one, actually. But I don't believe necessarily it's going to be an absolute hammering. And I do wonder if it's just another thing that then drags on. There is a part of me that thinks that West Ham are ready to sack Lopetegui. I think originally, when there was initially a load of pushback, there certainly was from the club, no, we're keeping this guy, we're keeping this guy, we're keeping this guy. I do believe we've crossed a threshold now, which is why I don't think we're seeing this. We're not hearing these 3-game things anymore. For you keep hearing the same thing. Why are West Ham constantly kicking a can down the road? I don't think this doesn't feel the same as before. I don't think I've ever heard one last game. This is his cup final. It was really, really clear, and everyone was being told the same thing. There was no 3-game thing. And I do wonder, particularly when you hear more and more about Potter and stuff like that, I do wonder if he's lined up and he is ready to go. And actually, West Ham might have even been surprised that they didn't get to pull the trigger after the Wolves game. But this is what happens when you're indecisive and you tie yourself in knots. You don't have the courage of your own convictions. They've created this little set of moral rules for themselves that now they can't fire him, which is a situation entirely their own making. Because if they decide he's got to go, he's got to go. It would not surprise me if we lose and he goes. And there's not this 3-game thing. I think there appears to be a desire from within the club to replace him now. And I think they're just maybe even waiting for an excuse, which again is a preposterous thing. You know, who's the boss here? Who's in charge? Why would you wait for an excuse for you? I guess they wouldn't be on their own in terms of an employee waiting for employer waiting for an employee to make mistakes. They get rid of them, but they don't really have to. This is not something that's going to go to a tribunal, really, is it? So they could just get rid of him. I'm worried. I think we'll lose. And before we get your final words and your score prediction, I'm not sure it'll be a hammering. I think we might lose 2-1. What about yourself, mate?
Yeah, if I'm thinking with my head rather than with my heart, I think it's 2-1 either way. But you know, this is one of them games, like we said, they've got the second most shots in the Premier League. We've got the 5th. It should be action-packed, full of goals. I'm saying that it's going to be 0-0 now, isn't it? But at some point, I just feel like something's going to click with our front three and we're going to outscore an opposition. So I'm going 3-2 West Ham.
3-2 West Ham. There you go. Positive Frankie there. Miserable old me. Anyway, I'm not going to justify I'm not going to justify myself anymore. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Let us know what score you think is going to be. Let me know if you think I'm totally wide of the mark in terms of, I know people are going to say, Gonzo, you're deluded. They're never going to let Lopetegui go. Surely they will have to at some point. You'd think so anyway. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining in. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. And do not forget the discount code there, Hammers Chat, all one word, for your Father Christmas letter.